Hello, everybody. Hello to everybody in the chat. It is a Tony day, a My Tony day. Welcome. I'm Natalie. This is Tony.
Hi, everybody.
This is Scientology, Life After a Cult, where I talk about my 35 years in Scientology. I talk about the hottest news on the internet about Scientology. And most importantly, about how 3 generations of my family left. We all left together. And now we're going to talk more about kind of like what happens after that, after you leave Scientology or a cult or a high control group or just a crappy situation. How do you do it, right? Can you find love and trust after a situation like that? We are going to talk about it.
Yeah. Is there a roadmap?
Is there?
Does someone have a roadmap?
Yes. If there's not,
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
Thank you to Dip Me in Glitter, who's a mod here today, helping out. Good to see you there. If you have a question, if you could put question in front of it in all caps, followed by the question, that would be really awesome. The super chats are starred automatically, but the questions I'll need to look for. So please do that, because we do have some questions that we've gotten that we're going to go off of. But in case you have more and new ones, by all means.
Yes. Questions are good.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, they are. All right. So let's see. Let's just get to some questions.
Yeah.
We will. And we'll kind of, I guess just in case in case you're new to the channel, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and check your subscribe button if you've been here before. Like the video, that will help to get notifications out, and we really appreciate it. Tony and I have been together for about a decade now, little over a decade, and he was never in Scientology.
Never in.
So when he met me, I was out of Scientology for just 2 years, I would say. And in the world of leaving and decompressing from a cult you spent your entire life in, that's not a lot of time.
Yeah, no, that's hardly any time at all if you think about it, really, in the grand scheme.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I think Tony has a very unique perspective, because I've gone through so many changes. I would like to think for the better. I do think for the better.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Ooh, and I have to share, check out my shirt. Proud declared.
Beautiful. Awesome color.
That's from Lara FM, and I love it so much. I love it. I just love it so much. It's very fun, and I really appreciate that she sent that to us, and a hoodie too. In fact, I slept in it last night because it was so comfortable.
Lara happens to be my favorite color too, by chance.
That's true.
Goldenrod. I didn't know it was my favorite color, but canary yellow, goldenrod.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Janet, thank you for the super sticker.
Hi, Janet.
That's right. It is your favorite color.
Yeah,
so
always.
Like goldenrod, but because he likes sunflowers and stuff too. So lots of yellow.
Yeah. Miles Davis had a canary yellow Ferrari. And when I was real young, I noticed it. And I don't know, I kind of took on that very bright yellow. I love it.
All right. So now, anyway, we've been together about 10 years now, and we've gone through a lot, not just from a relationship standpoint, but many, 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 many things. So we are going to jump into some questions.
We met, I think, like everyone meets, you have your baggage. Everyone says baggage or your backpack. And I've always, in my mind, I'm not sure why, but I've always viewed it like 2 people meet with baggage, and hopefully your baggage is kind of like in a similar area. You're not way over here and way over here with your baggage. You can kind of meet with the same amount of weight when it comes to your baggage. And then hopefully as you relationship matures, it kind of grows together ish instead of spreading out. But either way, it just kind of comes together to balance. It's my visual.
Yeah, I agree. Buzz Kia, did Tony's sons live with you when you moved in together? If so, how was the transition to stepmom? So when I first moved in with Tony, because I moved in with him initially, then we got different places together. Yes, I did. And as far as the transition of my relationship with the boys, who then were what, 7 and 9?
7 and 9.
And now they're
17
and
17? almost 17 and 20.
Yeah. With the boys, it's been great. We've been fortunate that it's always been actually really good.
Yeah.
Absolutely love them.
You know, I shared custody with the boy's mom 50-50. So it was every other week. And we made it very purposeful in the beginning that the roles of the adults and the kids, we really identified them. Natalie and I did right out of the chute. Natalie was not going to be a disciplinarian. She was going to be a parent that got to enjoy the fun side of things. And she helped, with homework and making meals and everything else that everyone else would imagine, just not the disciplinary portion of it.
Yes. And it's always gone really well with the boys. But I have to admit, I did not handle it well in the beginning. I think it took a while for me. I was more like, what would the word be? Stick up my ass, I think is the medical term. I was just more regimented and really about rules. And once there were certain rules,
right,
and in ways that I've since learned, and a lot of that was from being in the cult and things needing to be so exact and specific. And I would say it was fine with the boys, but as far as stepping into the role of stepmom, I overstepped in ways with their mom, in large part because of, just my background. And that took me years to figure out, years. And, we got there and we get there. And it's interesting to have, we have a blended family, but our children have never lived together, even though we've been together for 10 years, because my kids are a lot older.
Yeah. And I've never met a blended family that didn't in the beginning have to figure out and navigate, how this is going to go. I mean, it's always, has its challenges, and the adults, are usually coming off of some type of a divorce or a separation, or, God forbid, other things that are, difficult to work through. So it's always kind of can be a raw time, I think, anyway. So, pay attention to those kids, get on their level and make sure that we can see them through it. Right.
Yeah. And I think really ultimately, as someone who, I had my children, raised my children, and then been involved with Tony's boys, when stepping into a step parent role, my 2 cents on that is stay in your lane, know what your lane is. In this situation, the boys have 2 awesome parents, their mom and their dad.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely more the way to go. And if you don't need to be a disciplinarian, then don't let,
Yeah.
That
kind of goes into, I know some of the questions that we got after we had done Shared Alive last week together was about our relationship and the ecosystems that we spoke about. We spoke a lot about, how Natalie has an ecosystem and I have an ecosystem. And, I think that's a really good transition, because excuse me.
Calm it down.
I get really excited. And I'm Mediterranean blood, so the hands have to stay down here somehow.
I've had to learn that too, because I'm always like whacking lights.
It's like my hands want to move all the time. But the ecosystems in which we all live in, right? We all have an ecosystem that I like to think of it in terms of it's where I recharge my battery. It's where I have my space. It's where I feel like, the room is the sound is the way I like it. The temperature is the way I like it. The things are messed up perfectly the way I like it. And in designing how it looked when we were a blended family, starting to figure out our direction, the ecosystem was really important. And, and then kind of hone into it as our relationship, Natalie's and mine, progressed and matured, and in how it ties into Natalie being in a cult for so many years of her life. Her ecosystem was really emerging, and I was in a place in my life where I hadn't thought of it in those terms of my ecosystem. Where am I happy? What feels good? When what temperature is it? What music is playing? If you feel me. Yeah,
totally. I think that I'm going to grab a question here from Trevor. Thank you for the super chat. Did you know Joey from Friends called out Scientology season 9, episode 20 at 1908? This guy's in a cult. It will cost you $5,000 to get to level 3. And I don't feel different. No, I did not know that. That's funny. but it definitely costs way more
Sounds
than
cheap.
$5,000 to
Yeah,
get to
really good
to
deal.
level 3. This is a great question too from Nebulous. What were your expectations in Scientology, and were anything met despite the bad bits? If you mean my expectations, honestly, I didn't have expectations necessarily in Scientology because I was in Scientology from the time I was 5. So for me, it was just regular life.
Wow.
And I think if anything, I grew up not expecting anything because the church wasn't there to serve me. I was there to serve the church.
I see that, when when we met, and I go back to the socks story with, get some new socks. They have holes in it. You just kind of, you do what is necessary. It's in front of you. You take care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sparkling Dragon, my Tony, what is your favorite part about Natalie's channel? Love you both. Thank you.
My favorite part about Natalie's channel, well, there's numerous. It started out with me being able to experience Natalie's stories and things that I didn't hear about, and watching the woman that I love, heal on camera. And then it became quickly about the community that started to develop, and watching the support and the caring and the love and the kindness that was just beaming out of the community, and then being able to see other people's vulnerability and sharing their stories in brief in chats and then in messages and emails afterward. The gamut, really, I love it. The whole Natalie is amazing at it, and she's always been a connector, and she's able to have a platform here in a format that just allows her connectivity to show.
Yeah, and I love telling people stories, sharing people's stories, and just finding out where they came from and what's behind what they do. I just love that. Nebulous, did Tony need to adjust, or did Natalie need to adjust due to background differences? And which compromises were most difficult to overcome? That's what it was all about in my mind. It was all about both of us adjusting. And this isn't something that I see as being unique to coming out of a cult. I think anytime you're in a relationship, especially when you live together, there's going to be adjustments. And I think for me, the biggest adjustment I made, which is what I came to learn, is that it's okay that something is different. It's okay that he might do something different from how I would. It doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just different because we come from different places. We've learned different things. We have different skill sets. So different doesn't mean wrong, doesn't mean it has to be done this way.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, my early days in coming out of Scientology, for quite some time, certain things I just had to stick up my butt about when it came to rules and schedules and all of that. And it took, quite a bit for me to realize, like, oh, wait a minute. And some of that, I think, is coming from a place of growing up with such instability that you just want to control what you can control. And the recognition that there's really not much I can control outside of myself was huge. And it helped so much because then, I could let him be him and he could let me be me. You talk a lot about acceptance.
Yeah. There was adjustments, but it was almost like a 2-lane adjustment. There was the natural relationship adjustments. You get to know each other more. You realize, your quirks and your ticks. And then there was the cult training adjustment, no doubt. That adjustment is, stepping into a new world altogether, let alone a relationship with someone who's never been in, never, cared to know much about Scientology, let alone doesn't follow the norm, the general rules, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work. I don't fall into that. It's so there was adjustment, but like anything, we still adjust today. It's just a fine tuning here, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be kind of like we're always, right? As we're always learning and growing, then you're always adjusting and you're always pivoting and figuring out maybe a better way to do something.
Yes.
One of the questions that we got was, do you have separate living spaces or just separate workspaces? How far does this extend? And this is because we had said that we know what we each need in terms of what we call like our own ecosystem,
Yeah.
right? If you think of you have fish in an aquarium, and certain fish need it to be a certain way, whereas if you had a bird in a cage, the bird needs things to be a certain way. You
Yeah.
wouldn't put a bird in a tank full of water,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't put fish in a bird cage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first thing I had to learn was, what was that environment for me? Because I was never allowed or encouraged to, it was never about what I needed. It was always about what I needed to do for the Sea organization, for Scientology. And I never really thought about things in terms of what I needed.
Mm.
And with Tony's influence, I became more and more, I'm still getting used to it at times, even 10 years later, because he'll ask me what I want. And my automatic reaction is, well, like, what do you want for dinner? I'm like,
Yeah.
what leftovers do we need to finish? That is
What's
what
practical?
I will have.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, if you think of the physical ecosystem, Natalie never had a chance to set up an ecosystem. Most of us have a chance to, put the poster on the wall in our bedroom and, maybe choose the color of the paint on the walls when you're growing up and, put your favorite pillows or whatever makes that room, feel special to you. I think a lot of us maybe take that idea for granted, that, setting up a space that feels good for you specifically. So just that act in itself. So we share living space, but we have our own space that we're able to set up, if you will. And it's not a man cave. It's not like that at all. I'm not trying to get away from my lady. I'm trying to coexist with her. So we both are set up for success in our relationship. And if that means I need a room that has, guitars and loud amps and music and crazy lighting, and would give her a seizure. But, but she has space that has that cool, calm, dark, beautiful, spa-like sounds going on. And that's where we start. And then we blend each other's, I'll go into the spa and she'll come into the rock room. It's all good. But the starting place is how it looks.
And knowing, I think the first thing is just identifying what it is you need for yourself, what it is you really need for you.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because no one ever asked me. And then even when I left the Sea organization and I was living as a Scientology parishioner, it was still very much about Scientology. And then I also had children. When I was in the cult, I got married at 17, had my first daughter at 19. The other one, I think I was 22 or so.
You got no time to think of eco space.
Yeah, I went right into parenting. Yeah. So Tony's become the perfect partner for me because he has spent the last 10 years asking me what I need. And I've been working on figuring that out. And the way we have it physically even set up in our house is like he said, he's got a space downstairs where he hangs and plays his music. That's like where he has his guitars and the amps, and the lighting is different, and
lots of cords everywhere.
I hate that. I can't stand cords out. So upstairs, though, when you first come into the house, and this is our agreement, is that I have the final say on anything upstairs as far as decor or moving things.
Total say. Yeah.
And downstairs, he has total say.
Yeah.
He can make it look however he wants. Right. And these are common areas. So obviously we both use them, but really, honestly, I'm hardly ever downstairs.
Yeah. And, and we're fortunate we have some space that allows us to kind of, set it up that way where it is very, 50-50 separate in that way. Yeah. Even if you don't have that kind of room to be able to have one room yours, there's ways to kind of talk about the joined space that you have and let each other know what your ideal sound, temperature, feeling is about your space, and you can each kind of figure out a way to make that share that space in both ecosystems together.
Yeah, and like in our house, and it's been like this each place we've lived together in certain spaces. So like here in the upstairs, our agreement is that he likes to move things around. He's always moving things around and reorganizing and moving things around. And for the way my brain works, I find that very disturbing.
Mm.
I depend a lot on muscle memory for things. I don't want to have to remember where I put something, so I put it in the same spot all the time.
Yeah.
Or I try to. That's what works for me. So when we are at home, so like the upstairs, he knows you cannot
touch it.
move anything without talking to me first. So he'll come to me, even if it's in the office, and say, "Hey, I have an idea," because he's actually really great at decorating, setting a whole space up where it looks great. I'm more function and he's more, what would you call it? He makes it all look better and be better.
It's an element of design, I guess. Just spatial design. This
Yeah.
this piece over here is better than over there because the window's here and there's a couch there, and that's a really good example actually of how to see your own kind of ecosystem. I always look at it as like a retail space or a restaurant. Somewhere you walk into and you just go, "Oh man, this is so nice in here. I don't know why I like it, but it feels good." Everything just feels right to you. You may not even recognize it necessarily. Just your body just goes, "Oh, I like this." That is the feeling. That is the gist of the space you're trying to achieve, is that kind of vibey, vibes with you and makes you feel good.
Yeah, where you thrive. And
Yeah.
there's even times like where I'll be able to tell Tony ahead of time, like when I'm on my way home, I might say, "Hey, it's just chaotic. I need to go lock myself in the closet."
Yeah.
Because when we lived in a townhome, I had a walk-in closet, and that's where I would go and shut the door
Yeah.
and kind of decompress.
For real.
And now I can do that in our bedroom. So he knows, like, we have those smart bulbs where you can control it on your phone.
Yeah.
So he knows the setting that I like. He knows
Yeah.
the, down to the essential oils and the diffuser I like, and the setting the fan needs to be on so it makes just the right sound, not the wrong sound.
Yeah. And you know what? It can even be as simple as just when you're, let's say, for example, your partner comes home from work and your ecosystem's been going all day long, and that's your shared space. Giving a little space for their ecosystem to kind of move in and start to blend is I think a really easy thing to do. It'll definitely help the transition.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
It does.
Yeah.
Another question, which is kind of a follow-up to, do we have separate living spaces? I mean, we don't, but we have separate spaces that we each can spend time in that we both still share, but it's more, one is more set for what I like, one's more set for what he likes.
Right.
Does it also include time, like needing just to exist in your messiness, tidiness without the other for a while?
Sure.
Yeah, to a degree, but that's something like we each, if one of us needs some time alone in that space, we totally take it. And
we just want to be, honestly, we want to be together. That's, even though we have separate ecosystems set up in the same ecosystem, our goal is to always be around each other. I think that's kind of why we do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We also want to be next to each other. So that encourages us to, make sure it's comfortable for the other person. There are times when I really need it to be, and part of it's because I've talked about some of the neurological issues that I've dealt with. And, sometimes the light, I love the sun, but sometimes it just hurts me.
Right.
I don't know how to explain it. If I've had too much stimulation during the day or a lot of people, I need the room to be a little darker and the blinds closed.
Yeah.
And I need to know that, knowing that it just feels safe and cozy.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and I think maybe this might answer the question. If I'm not feeling that way at that moment, I'll make sure Natalie is good. And I don't want to leave her in a place that she wants company. But if she's set up in her ecosystem and everything is going fine for her, I don't want to be in that dark place. I want to get outside in the sun and, I don't know, throw the ball for the dog. I'll get into my ecosystem. We each have that freedom, to be able to do that. So
neuropsych, aura or migraines? No, I actually rarely, knock on wood, get headaches. I get more muscle tension headaches. It's like muscle tension is my whole thing.
Yeah.
More that it's more, it just, I don't know how to explain it. It feels loud.
Things are coming at you.
Yes, it feels like things are kind of like coming at me more. Now, not all the time, right? It just depends on the day that I had. And I'm very like, I love meeting people and sharing with people. But really, for me to recharge, I need to be by myself or just with Tony, and it needs
Yeah.
to be in a darker,
Yeah.
cooler.
Yeah.
I've had it where it's 100 degrees outside and I've
Yeah.
got a blanket on me inside
Yeah.
because I just need it to feel that way, that real kind of nested in
Yeah.
feeling. It helps to lower my anxiety and just where I feel like I can just relax. And then I'm better prepared to deal with whatever else that we need to deal with.
I think it's safe to say that's optimal battery charging environment, ecosystem, weather. That's where she sets it up where that's where she can best recharge herself.
Yeah, and Tony's got his as well. And if mine's too dark, then he goes outside or
Yeah.
goes downstairs.
Yeah.
Arzu, what is your favorite memory of your relationship? Ooh, favorite memory. I think for me, the first thing that pops into my mind is a trip we took the first time he went home with me to
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
We went to the Big Island and we just had the most amazing time. I mean, we've had a great time every time we've gone
Yeah.
back, but there's always something about that first time of doing something together. And for me, it has to be that when we went to the Big Island and he came and met my entire family in Hawaii for the
Yeah.
first time.
I would say that's mine too. That was, something that Natalie hadn't had an opportunity to bring friends and, home necessarily.
Husbands, boyfriends. I've never, even I was married twice before and never went.
Yeah.
Never went home to Hawaii with anyone I was married to or with. You were the first.
So I felt very special just with that in itself. But then meeting Natalie's family, and her grandma was having a birthday party. And so the neighborhood was out, and the barbecue and the dancing and the music and everything was, for me, I had never been to Hawaii, and to be able to see it with Natalie and be exposed to her family all at that same time, it was really a spectacular memory.
Yeah,
it was really
great.
Yeah.
Neuropsych, you got to tell me more about this. Sounds like neurological aura without pain. Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. I need to check that out. And I think you and I have emailed, so we'll have to email and talk about that. I find it all fascinating because, again, in the way that I grew up and in the C organization, it was always about making do with what you have and you adjusting to the environment, not changing the environment to suit you as the individual. If the church as a whole, the cult as a whole, they're all about changing the environment to suit them.
Yeah.
And even changing you to suit them. So I never had that. I mean, really until Tony, because even though I left Scientology 2 years before we even met, I hadn't been introduced to any different way of living. I was still figuring out what was still true for me, what I needed to get rid of.
We broke all the rules.
Yeah, we broke all the rules.
Yeah.
Victoria 1, what was the last concert you two attended together? Probably Henry Capono in Hawaii. Right?
Dukes on Sunday. Yeah, may have been Dukes. Dukes on the Big Island.
Yeah, we don't. It's, back in the day when Tony's been to many, many, many concerts. I have not. I did not grow up going to concerts. I went to a concert as an adult in the 90s. And it was Jewel. And then I went another time when my kids wanted to go. I think it was Panic at the Disco and somebody else back in the day. Also, early 2000s, maybe.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just, for me, I love live music, but it needs to be a small setting. And the last one we went to was when we would go back to Hawaii. And on Oahu, there's a place called Duke's in Waikiki. And Henry Capono, who's one of my favorite Hawaiian recording artists, plays there every Sunday. So we try to make that. But, it's at a restaurant, outdoors on the beach kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Big concert halls and things like, I don't like it. He likes it.
Yeah.
And we've just, we're older too. Not that people our age can't go to concerts, but we just can't stay up that late.
The last few years has been a little different. The coming off the pandemic, and then my health issues that came up, and so we were not that big at going out in the evening anymore, which typically is when it all goes down. But live music has always been a part of my life since I can remember. My very first concert, how about I'll tell you that, was Neil Young when I was 13. Neil Young and Crazy Horse, and I had so much fun. I remember. And the Barkers and the Colored Balloons was just this lyric that kept on running over my head, still to this day. Yeah.
Yeah, not too big on it. Not too big on it. Smaller places though. Lavender Bridges with a touch of Giles. When you go back to Oahu, try to make time to go listen to Michael Pirana. I think you'd enjoy him. Cool. Yeah, we'll have to look for him. We'll have to look and see for sure. I'm going to grab this other question here. What are some specific examples of particular incompatible habits that you have around the house, and how do you maintain peace in spite of them?
Incompatible habits?
Let's see.
No.
Incompatible habits. Okay, here's one. Here's a big one.
No.
Not locking the door and not shutting the garage door. So I come home, I lock the door. If I had my way, windows would never be open. They'd just be locked all the time.
But I do it now. I work very hard at doing that.
Yeah. But he does now.
Yeah.
And I installed an automatic digital lock on the front door so that when it shuts, it locks automatically.
We also have a very large animal. His name is Odin. He's a wonderful way. He'll alert me and Natalie if anyone is walking up that we don't know.
Yeah, he will. Yeah. He will. I know for me, and I think it's for a couple of reasons. One, it's, we've just grown up in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I think too, being for me as a female, we've actually talked about this. I don't know what it feels like, not just for me as a female, for me as me, who's also female. So with where I came from and through the experiences that I've had, feeling just really just like I don't need to be watching and like knowing what's going on, just really relaxing and feeling like somebody's just got my back.
Yeah.
That, was a first with Tony as well.
Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah. He helps me to feel safe. And when I feel safe, I feel like I can relax. And I'm not talking about being just physically safe. I'm not talking about that. That's important to me too. But just, I think, feeling safe in the way that I don't fear judgment with him. I can say anything, do anything, and he's not going to judge me for it. He might laugh or whatever, but I know that he's not going to judge me for it, that I can be, if I feel like being goofy, that I can be. Yeah. And if I don't, then I don't. Sometimes I'm super goofy, and sometimes I'm a bit more like super literal and just not that fun.
Yeah, all the above. But what would be the fun in judging you for any of that stuff? It's just let people be goofy. I wish I could be more goofy at times. So I admire that quality. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, you are super goofy at times.
Yeah, just not outwardly as much, in my vacuum for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes he makes jokes and I have no idea what he's talking about.
That's because no one probably does. I know my sense of humor is totally off, and that's why I don't bring it out very often, because it's typically not gotten.
And we don't have too many ways, I think, when it comes to day-to-day living that we're incompatible. We're both more, tidier. Except probably where it's different. I wouldn't even call it incompatible, but different is I like things put away. I'm more of a minimalist. I like more of a minimal look, and he likes everything just out where he can see it. Yeah. And cords and cords and cords.
and sometimes the compatibility comes in just maybe the urgency of some situations too. Some things Natalie wants to put away, and it has its place, and I support that and believe in that. But it can happen tomorrow, or a little bit later today. So some of those things, as far as, just the,
Yeah. I'm
simple
more like,
stuff.
no, it needs to be done now.
Simple stuff, really simple stuff. It's important to pick your battles. And, and I think that's been a helpful source of information when it comes to, do I really want to, get into this about dishes? No, I don't.
Yeah.
Compatibility can bend and stretch, if you ask me.
Exactly. And it's really me who've been more learning how to bend and stretch.
Yeah.
Nick, thank you so much for the super chat. No questions for you guys. Just sending love from Ireland. Oh,
thanks,
yay.
Nick.
You
Ireland.
You guys that have left Scientology are also brave. Thank you. Honestly, yes. I think you guys who keep really showing up here and talking about with us are all so brave.
I will second that to all of the SP Nation creators out there, and the SP Nation themselves, and everyone who has been a part of, and involved in the support of their journey through all this. It's amazing, really. Kudos to everybody.
Yes.
Hugely.
Lavender Bridges with a touch of, I'm going with Giles. Thank you so much for the super chat. Mai Tai's on me. It'll be great. We actually both don't drink alcohol anymore, but we will pick up a 4-pack of those THC drinks and drink it like it's our job.
Yeah, for sure.
They're legal now in our state.
Finally.
Yeah. Okay. I just had a question that was being pulled up there. I want to make sure. Is it Lorny Lurks? Is it hard to move away from the snitch culture that is Scientology? Having to write people up can't be easy. Is trust an issue at all? Love you two together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a great question. Early on, I think it was. I mean, there was nobody to snitch to, right? But I think more so like, not so much in snitching and telling on. For me, it was more like being okay with rules bending and areas of gray instead of just, nope, needs to be this way.
Yeah. Gray areas.
Yeah. Early on, I was had very black and white thinking, which wasn't effective growing up the way that I did. That's why it was that way for me. Mm-hmm. And as far as the trust issues, it's really become, gosh, I don't even know really how to explain that. It's more, I trust, I don't know. You
want to trust so badly. It's like if you think of it, I think of it in this way. Abuses were almost like provoked on people who were indoctrinated into Scientology or people who were in Scientology. They were provoked.
Yeah.
And so it's like underneath that are your real feelings or emotions that have been squelched. And so that I want to trust so bad. And there's, that big elephant sitting on your trust that you want to let up. Yeah. And so get that elephant off of your trust.
Interestingly,
kind of how I see it.
Interestingly, though, I think what's something that I've never quite been able to figure out why. And I think it's because I do trust, even despite everything that happened.
Seriously.
I think more so.
Wow.
It had a different effect on me. I really more so am more open. I have higher hopes for people. I still have hope for them until they do something super messed up. And then I'm like, okay, maybe no, maybe you shouldn't be in the circle.
Yeah, maybe not.
But I kind of got to get screwed over a bit before I get there, because I know how much I changed after leaving Scientology and the more work I did on myself. And I know how much happier I got, that I feel like change is possible. We all do stupid things, especially when we're younger.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we do it 20 years later, right? We might have learned some lessons from that and matured a bit, and we don't do that anymore. So I often find myself with certain people, just I have faith in them and I make the assumption that they're going to do what's right. Tony is more like calls them out right from the start. And then I get irritated because I'm like, you don't trust anybody. And he's like, oh, it's not that. It's just that this person is going to XYZ. And I'm like, why would you say that? There's no evidence of that. Because again, right, it has to be very factual. And I would say 9 out of 10 times he's totally right.
Yeah. often, I did not grow up in a cult, and I did have a life of taking care of myself and being very in tune to the surroundings around me, almost hypersensitively. So I kind of have always have looked ahead of what's next. I see what's happening now, and I've seen this before, and what happened before this and this happened after this. So I've kind of always hedged that. I try to look ahead a little bit to stay out of trouble, if you will. But yeah.
Definitely. It's something that I am actually glad and happy that, even though sometimes I'll end up being screwed over, because I will give somebody more rope, because it's more, I feel more, I don't know, like as a parent in a way, like I'm gonna give you an opportunity to make a better choice, but if you don't, then okay, and I'm gonna have to put more of a boundary there, more space between you and myself. I don't know why. I feel in ways that I should have way more trust issues than I do. But I will say this, and I think that you will agree. Early on, I did have trust issues when it came to him, because I wasn't used to something like Tony. Maria, spill the juicy stuff. We're about to spill some juicy stuff right now. I wasn't used to somebody so impromptu and spontaneous and impulsive and creative. So Tony can be all over the place. And coming out of Scientology, where it's more regimented and more black and white thinking, I could like
Scary.
control things in my environment more. And he was just all over the place.
Yeah.
And we're kind of at the opposite ends of extremes when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
So to me, he looked absolutely nuts.
Yeah. But what's interesting too is that this proves you can take the cult out of the person.
Yeah.
You can take the cult out of the person. Now what I didn't know about Natalie in the beginning was that she was so freaked out about that, as you didn't really let on. You did amazingly well, kind of blindly going through it, and I use the snowmobile as an example. The snow machines, when during the wintertime here in the Midwest, we get on these motorcycles in the snow basically and go very fast over frozen water. And sometimes the water's not frozen and you go, I'm going to go over the open water that's supposed to be frozen. And that was just hanging in there, going through all these things like she was done it before. And let alone I realized later in life that she was like, oh my God, no.
It was hard to do because I hadn't done anything like that. My whole life was regimented. Everything, the way that we grew up thinking, and we were trained to think in Scientology, is it's like a chess game. You're just always looking ahead at what will happen if you move this here, then this will happen, and blah, 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 blah. It's constant risk assessment and risk management that is incredibly anxiety producing. And I came to realize that is how they kept us in fight or flight in Scientology and in the Sea organization. If you could keep somebody in this electrified, stressed out state, they're not going to go anywhere.
Right.
You're just
scared.
You're just focused on what you're doing. And you think the only way out of this feeling and this anxiety is to just get through what you need to get through, where there's no slowing down and just enjoying.
Yes.
And that's something I've learned with Tony. And it still, I think, took me a long time to just relax or to let him do things for me. That was I think, a trip.
Yeah, truly. I bring Natalie coffee in the morning. And
every morning.
And when I started doing that in the morning, it was like she didn't know who I was bringing it to.
Yeah, like what?
Like, you're the only one here.
Yeah.
She had this look in her face, like, for me. She still kind of does it in a little weird way, but she knows now it's all good. It's for her.
Because he's so thoughtful in doing things like that. And it took me a long time, because he would even ask me like, oh, do you need anything? Can I get you anything? And 99.5% of the time I say no.
I have to bring it out of her. I'm like, no, wait, really, seriously. Do you need anything? I want to get it for you.
But sometimes though, I'll be like, hey babe, can you, because he's so amazing with food, everything. I try to make I like hot water with lemon and this honey in it. When I make it, it does not taste the same.
Mm.
Then I saw him make it. It's because he put so much more honey in, and I would never do that for myself because the honey, it's
Better save it.
yeah, I better save it. I got it at this farmer's market. It was expensive, so I want to use it sparingly, if at all. Like I have had things go bad because I don't use it because I'm saving it.
The honey will sit in the cupboard for years.
The good honey.
The good honey. And then it's not good anymore.
Yeah, but not anymore.
Use
I eat
it.
the good honey now. I just don't put as much in there as he does.
Yeah. So
because I feel like it's wasteful.
it's true. But if you take that analogy and you kind of spread it across the board as far as how being in the cult has affected Natalie's being able to accept that it's okay to use the honey.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Or the nice towel.
You should use it. Yeah.
We do. I will say this. We do have separate bathrooms. And to me, separate bathrooms are a relationship saver.
Yeah. Who wouldn't want one if you could?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't like sharing a bathroom at all with the man.
You know what? And also, can I just bring this up? The only
I don't know
thing,
what it is that you're about to bring up.
It's easy.
Okay.
But it's about going back to incompatibilities.
Mhm.
I really, it's hard to think of one, but I just did. It is driving together.
Oh,
Driving together. So if you take everything that we've just talked about about incompatibility when it comes to where we come from, and I'm a little risk takey, and I don't mind looking out the window at scenery passing by while I'm driving.
Oh, that freaks me out.
So, and then I'm not used to driving as a passenger. And so I try to brake on the floorboards when Natalie's driving. So we're not good driving together.
No, we are. And it's really funny because we're talking about how we want to go take this road trip together. But I think that'll kind of be more, I think we need to do it, like really jump in. We did do it in 2019, I think. We did actually go on a little RV trip, but we never went further than 4 hours away. And we did pretty good, but just going from here into like Minneapolis though, right? So 30, 40 minutes in the car and we're ready to almost kill each other.
Yeah. I think, I know we can do it.
Very incompatible in the car.
We don't do it often. And it's something I'm sure we can work through, but everyone needs a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it is for us, which is why I think we need to do this road trip together this summer, because we need to figure that out. I think it's time that we face that and we figured it out. We worked through it.
We can do it.
Yeah, but it's like he hates my driving. I hate his driving. He is the worst backseat driver. And then I'll be, and I've got the sensitive nervous system, right? So I'll be driving along and he'll go, hey! I'm like, oh my God, what? And it was like, oh, I just thought that you weren't going to turn. I'm like, well, then you go, hey, babe, like that, like gently, not.
I don't passenger well. It scares me.
He doesn't. And then when he's driving, I can't relax in the car because I feel like I have to keep watch because he's always looking around. And in all fairness, though, knock on wood, Tony has not had a car accident since we've been together, right? No.
I don't want to. I will point it out. I drive a lot of different types of machines too.
Yeah, you do.
And I've never gotten in an accident in any of them.
Yeah, I totaled a car, but that wasn't maybe it was a little bit my fault.
All about the facts.
Yes. And, but when I hit the deer, that was not, it just ran out. It was after me. That deer targeted me.
The deer was a bad driver.
Totally.
But
that deer crossed 3 lanes of traffic to get in front of my car. And I hit it on the hind side. The deer ran off. I think the deer was fine. I feel like I still have.
I can see the deer now. He was just doing that Detroit lean and cruising, and Natalie pops out of nowhere.
Came running out. And where we live, there are deer. So that's why I'm always like looking for that now.
Yeah. But that's it. That's all I can think about as far as, everything else is a dream.
Yeah. Yeah. Really. The driving is the worst.
Yeah.
OBG Foster. Tony, do you have ADHD?
I do. I have ADHD, but it's ADD. I don't have the hyper side of it. but I have the I can't sit down side of it. I am very challenged to sit down for any length of period of time. I have the superpower focus side of it, though. When I'm interested in something, I focus on it quite well. It's the things that I'm not interested in that I've had to learn coping skills and mechanisms to try to spark that in me.
But sometimes there's a little bit of over focused on it too.
Yeah.
And it's over focused ADHD.
It is like I said, a superpower when it needs to be. Yeah. But and I'm still at my age at 52 learning. They call them coping mechanisms. I just learn. I just call it. I'm learning more about me and how I mechanism. How do I what works for me and what to watch out for. And yes.
Yeah. And what he needs, like he'll this one time for his birthday, it was your birthday or Father's Day, I'd gotten him this ticket to go on this Ferris wheel on the 4th of July.
I was very excited about it.
We were going to be able to be on a Ferris wheel and watch the fireworks over Lake Minnetonka.
Sounds cool.
Super cool, right? It was, I forget if it was Father's Day or your birthday. Both are close together. So it was around there. Mm-hmm. So we're at my sister's house because we're going to walk over to the lake where this is and go up in the, watch the fireworks from this Ferris wheel. We were so excited.
It was going to be so fun. Beautiful night.
But the tag on his pants was poking him.
Well, yeah, the tag, it was more than a tag, but the tag couldn't remove it. Put it that way.
So, but he couldn't let it go. And this is where we're very different. Yeah. I have a high tolerance of pain and being uncomfortable. Like I could be very uncomfortable physically and you wouldn't necessarily know it.
Right.
And that comes from being in Scientology and doing those training routine drills.
Clearly.
And that's to my detriment often because I've had to learn, especially with doctors, to be really to show my pain.
Yeah.
To show how much pain I
hardly even react to things that would put me on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm better now. Now I say ouch.
Yeah. And I, and I don't have a defense for, this tag inside my pants had me so focused on it and so uncomfortable. I could not stand the idea of being stuck on a Ferris wheel and enjoying a beautiful night with fireworks with my beautiful woman. I couldn't stand the idea.
He had to go home to change it, but he was never going to make it back in time. So I ended up going with my niece who was there on the Ferris wheel and enjoyed the fireworks. Yeah. But it's that kind of thing. But also, if you remember, like I didn't give you crap about it.
Nope.
I didn't get angry with him because I know that that's how his brain works.
Yes.
Sometimes he will get fixated on something that's uncomfortable and won't be able to do anything until it's taken care of.
Right.
Whereas I am the extreme in the other way.
Right.
And so it's kind of, I always feel like it's because we're so different that kind of brings us together.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting better at saying when I am uncomfortable.
Right.
And showing it.
And you've put the work into understand me, and I've tried to put the work in to communicate myself.
Yeah.
So you need to communicate and you need to be willing to learn in a relationship in order to make that not a disaster for anybody.
Yeah.
Because, the minute you get upset with me about something that I'm having a hard time with, then I get more upset. Right. And then we spin out of control. So we just try to avoid that altogether.
Well, that's probably why we don't really fight, because it's understanding, and this sounds so mechanical in ways, but I think it's true. It's understanding how my brain works and understanding how his brain works, understanding the ecosystem that I need and understanding the one that he needs.
Yep.
I know he needs to do things like ride a motorcycle, drive a boat really fast, things that give me anxiety. He needs to do that. He knows that I don't need to do that. I've spent a lifetime. I don't seek out adventure, but I've had a lot of it just through work and different things.
Yep.
I went up in a stunt plane once, like it was like things that I had to do.
Yeah. But what's important there is that we each need something different, yet we each know what the other person needs. So we're going to make sure that we can do what we can with the person or for the person, but for sure support the person in what they need for themselves, because I'm going to go support myself and what I need for myself.
Yeah, and he's really good at that. That's one thing I learned early on, because he kept saying, you need to do what's right for you. You need to do what you need. And for the first several years, it was like, well, I don't know what I need. No one's ever asked me what I need. And it was having almost the opposite effect it should have had. It took me quite a while to work through that and finally understand. And honestly, I think it's really just the last couple years.
It did.
I would say 2 years. One of these days, I'm going to have my friend Annette on, who is a certified life coach. She did a whole bunch of training. Didn't just put up a shingle and become a life coach. Yeah. She helped me tremendously.
She's great.
And her technique is very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy. And it really helped me take a step back and take out the significance I was forcing onto everything of, he didn't do this or remember that. So it means, whatever I was making it mean, where the truth is he has ADHD and, he's not always going to be as focused or remember these things. He needs help being reminded, just how, like I do about stuff too.
Yeah. Natalie is even, I can tell now I recognize it, but she'll, let's say I forgot to do something and I was, did 10 other things instead. But instead of Natalie saying, hey, you didn't do that, she'll say, hey, I was thinking about that and wondering about that. And she, I quickly realized that was on the table for me to do, but she just presents it in a way that doesn't make me feel like I've done something or didn't do something right.
Yeah, I try that.
It helps a ton.
Yeah, because that's the thing that I came to realize is that just because he does things differently or he processes differently doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's different. And he allows me to process how I need to. Doesn't judge me. If sometimes, it's really now the bedroom more acts as the closet. But a couple times I've still been in the closet. Like it just needed to be smaller, and just depending on, how my day went and what I did, because I can have some crazy days, like many people.
Yeah.
And as far as I've come with figuring out who I am and learning what it is that I need, I really like that now. I really like that I know that I can control my ecosystem and create what I need. And I know the words to communicate it. And he's very supportive in that.
Yeah. And I know this is not an original thought. This is everyone's heard. Wait, what I'm about to say, everyone's heard this before. But when you're in an airplane and they say when the mask comes down, put it on yourself first. When you have your first child, in a lot of cases, the nurses tell you, make sure you get sleep and eat well before, because you can't take care of your new infant. But in society, we're often taught is that we're being selfish if we think about ourselves first. Well, that's ludicrous. We need to be able to be okay with what we need in order to then share ourselves and our support for others. It's maybe harder done than said, but
I agree.
Yeah.
Paula, Natalie, I say to you the same thing I say to my mom. This is a rare man. You are among the luckiest people on the planet. I agree completely with that.
That's really sweet.
And I feel that way often.
Thank you.
Often. Definitely often.
Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry.
Bridget says, you guys are so needed. You guys are so needed. This is what I want to hear about dealing with relationships. I kind of feel like, you know what, if we can make it this long with someone who spent 35 years in a human trafficking cult and Tony with his background and the struggles that he has had, then y'all got hope.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I did not come from a place of like a fairy tale family where, my parents were, I consider it, divorced to each other 3 times to each other before I was 19. They didn't have the final paperwork done those times, but it was as if it were a divorce each time. So I don't come from examples of how to keep it together. I just know what I learned what I didn't like. It's like Rick Rubin, a music producer. I really like his way of thinking, and he said this, and I heard him say, someone asked him a question, how do you know what's good and what's bad when you're listening to music? He's like, well, how do you know what's good or what's bad when you're eating food? You put it in your mouth. Does it taste good or bad? How long does it take you to notice? Well, I kind of think of it like that. We know whether we do something about it or admit it is a different story.
That's true.
Yeah.
Laura, are you autistic, Natalie? I mean that as a compliment. I totally get it.
Mhm.
And I actually get this question a lot.
Yeah.
Since I work primarily with autistic kids and adults, I was born 3 months premature in the 70s. No one knew what female autism looked like. That's true. I worked with a doctor, and what she did as well. She worked with children with autism. And I was working with her on something else. It was some of the issues that I was physically having. And she brought that up. And she said to me, I did kind of like this pre-screening, not an official screening. So I did not get a diagnosis, but she was like, I would be surprised if you didn't land somewhere on there. But understanding my background of where I came from, I am not totally sure, because some of those, and this has been an interesting question for me. And if my neuropsych gal is still here, listen to this. I don't know if we've talked about this on email, but I have a theory that people who are on the autism spectrum, that in the C organization, it kind of sucks them in more in a way. I don't know if that makes sense, because it's so regimented. But it's not like the military where you're going to go out where you could literally lose your life. I mean, as much as culty and stuff as Scientology is, it's not a risk of immediate life, unless there's self-harm involved. And I think that can explain a lot of, my behavior being so literal. We're trained in Scientology to be literal, actually.
Right.
Not show emotion. We're trained in Scientology in this organization to not show emotion. And when I was talking to my doctor, and I'm like, well, but I'm really good at making eye contact. Well, that's because we did hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of training routines in Scientology, and we're forced to as well. So I think it's an interesting topic, and I would love somebody who's more knowledgeable about it to look into it, or maybe even do a study to see if that's the case. But I think there is some tie to the way the C organization functions. And because I've known so many people who I'm no specialist, but who looking back, I can identify as, wow, I think that person could have been on the spectrum. The lack sometimes of boundaries, or just saying whatever, but then also you're trained to do that. You have these buttons trained out of you from childhood. So it's really hard to say for sure. So I don't know.
I have just a really fast, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have any training. I didn't go to school. I lived life, and I'm still living it. But I think the spectrum could be a whole show. And everybody's on the spectrum. Everyone is on it. And to what degrees we share the same, spot on the spectrum. That's where it all differs, right? We're higher over here and someone else is higher over here. But the obvious to me was Natalie's spectrum. It is largely influenced by her training and as a young person in her influential years, just so happened then to be in the cult, which reminds me somewhat of the military. My father was 101st Airborne Infantry, Vietnam, 68 and 69. And some of the things that I grew up with, that I heard him talking about, or the ways that he approached something, was very, very similar to sometimes how I hear Natalie speak, for what it's worth. Yeah.
Purple Groovy, did Tony give you butterflies when you first kissed? Yes, and still, I can't talk to him on the phone without my body temperature going up like 5 degrees. I'm always like,
I'm getting butterflies right now. I'm thinking about you.
We have been very fortunate that way.
Yes, we have. Very.
We like being next to each other.
It's totally right.
Definitely. Bridget, my parents were married almost 50 years before my mom died. When they were 17 and 19. Wow, that is so great that they were together the whole
Wow.
time.
Wow.
That's a really beautiful
Amazing.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, Laura, this is interesting. Laura says, yes, CPTSD can look like autism mixed together. That's true too. So I never got a PTSD diagnosis, but I've not really been evaluated for it, or now what they're starting to call PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury. But like my sister has. And what is CPTSD though? Maybe somebody can tell me in the chat. I'll have to catch up and see that, but I don't know what that is. But I could totally see how those two things could mix together. It's hard to say. I feel like, oh my gosh, I could probably be given a ton of different labels, and some of them would be correct and some of them might not be correct because it's so different, depending on where you came from. When my children, specifically my daughters, when my daughters went to Hawaii for the first time, it was without me, because I was never taking my kids when I went back to see my family. That was my time off. But my ex-husband took them and would take them. And when they met people in Hawaii, they came home and they said, oh, you make so much more sense now. Because some of that is just because they were like, why you got to talk to everybody? Because I like to talk to people. And then add to that this, I have this natural curiosity so much about people because most of my life I was so limited in the circle that I was in. And I want to know, and often that would result in me asking what would be considered inappropriate questions of strangers. But I've gotten better about it now. And now I still ask the questions, but I preface it with, you do not need to answer this question. Please let me know if this is too personal. And that's where sometimes I think, and what I talked to my doctor about, where maybe I was or am on the spectrum a little, because I do have a very difficult time telling when someone across from me is very uncomfortable about what I'm talking about.
It's the same as like if let's say Natalie's out and someone were to give her a compliment and maybe be hitting on her. Natalie would be like, well, they were? No,
I have no clue. With that, I have no clue. My sister used to say that you wouldn't notice if somebody was hitting on you unless he took his bleep out. And she's right.
Do that.
She's right. I wouldn't know. And even when we met, I was the aggressor. I mean, I made the first move that let you know I was interested.
Awesome. Yeah, it was great.
Yes, that's definitely how it went. Gosh, you guys got some great thoughts, especially on this, how it relates to ADHD and OCD and being on the spectrum.
Everything is connected. I'm a firm believer in that. Things that we don't even know that are connected are connected.
Complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, cool. I'll have to look up and see what the difference is there. That is really cool. I think that's why I like so much. I've done some deep dives on cognitive behavioral therapy, and because it just gives you the ability to change things in real time and to reframe it. And I needed that coming out of Scientology and letting go of anything I ever believed, any tools I ever had, whether they worked or not. That just all fell away. And then I had nothing, no way. And then to have, even today, I'm still learning how to process certain emotions, because all I knew how to do was to compartmentalize it and put it in like a little box off to the side and just focus on whatever it is that I'm focused on and just do whatever I need to do to get through it. And now it's more, when these emotions, I mean, you guys have seen me do it. If you follow my channel, I've like broken down and cried multiple times, or cried or responded appropriately to what I was speaking about, I have to say, because I'll say like, I just had a total breakdown, and Tony will remind me, that's not a breakdown. That's responding with emotions that are appropriate to what was being talked about.
Right.
In my mind, because we were never allowed to have that release of, especially that grief, that kind of upset, that I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Isn't that something? It's literally that simple. Her mind goes to a place of, I'm not supposed to do this. Oh my gosh, I'm broken. And I'm like, no, babe, that's emotion.
Yeah.
Just emotion. That's
Yeah.
all it is just a beautiful emotion. And it doesn't have to feel good. It doesn't have to be a fuzzy emotion. It's just you feel it. So feel it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. And you guys know my email, Natalie@tonkatalk.com. So if there's something you think I should look at, learn more about it, I am all for it. And yes, neuropsych, feel the feelings. I had 3 different neurologists tell me that before I understood what they were saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was part of the issue too when I was having the muscle spasms that were so bad is I would go into the doctor's office and communicate about it like I'm speaking right now.
Right.
So they wouldn't
I couldn't believe
understand.
it.
Yeah, they wouldn't understand. Whereas Tony, we've had to go, especially since he's been after his cancer diagnosis and through different parts of it, we've had to go to the ER or to urgent care. And I've had to go for me to the ER or urgent care. And they're very different experiences.
Mm.
And I'd always be like, they immediately get you back. They're
Because
asking
I'm going,
about like
I'm hurt. I'm in pain. I'm annoying people so bad. They're like, get that guy, that H, out of here. Somebody attend to him. And you're sitting over there all stone faced, bloody. And they're like, she's cool. We got other people at her.
That's totally the case. But I've gotten but really only in the last 2 years that it was after I think finding some doctors who kind of understood a bit or at least could recognize to a degree what was going on with me like that. And so I've been more open about it with them. And it's hard to do at times because, my previous training would be to just to suppress the discomfort
completely
and get on with it and do what you need to do.
You can almost see Natalie's fighting with Natalie inside, like trying to spit out, I am in pain. I want to do this. Wow, that looks fun. It is true at times, but especially in those doctor situations, you can see her just going like turmoil. I'm not supposed to say I'm vulnerable. I'm hurt. I'm in pain.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true.
Yeah, but now it's
so much better.
Yeah, now I go in there and bitch like hell. But I have to make myself do it. It still doesn't come automatically.
Yeah, you got to pull it out.
Yeah, even now I think the way that I express physical pain now, like when I had that leg spasm last week, I had a really bad, like from my toes all the way up to my hip, and I was just howling about it, and I was so proud of myself.
Yeah. Normally she would just deal with that kind of stuff, and I heard her say, Tony, I need you. Yeah. And that's not something Natalie does. Normally she'll just deal with it, and I'll hear her going, ow.
Yeah. I just try to get through it, but you were downstairs. So I actually texted him. I'm I need you to come help me.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bad muscle spasm.
But, I think, for anybody who's come from a place of control or abuse, that can be a very difficult thing to do, is stand up for yourself, to do something for you, to not feel like you are ashamed for thinking about yourself first, or doing anything remotely that might make you happy for F's sake, so.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of it is before you got to know what you need, know what we each need, and know that my opinion is that's not something you're going to find from somebody else.
Right.
But can you find someone who can complement that, or at least understand what you need and you understand what they need? But I think it's important to recognize if you know what you need, then you can always create that, and you can create your own happiness, whether you're with somebody or not.
Right. And it's hard enough. Let's say you do find that in yourself and you're able to communicate that. And if there's someone in your life that's not able to hear you, not willing to support that healthy change in you, that's another hurdle. I mean, it's hard enough to do it, by ourselves with someone else who's then not necessarily in that same mindset.
Yeah.
So, sharing how you're feeling is important.
Yes, it has helped a ton. And so the long and short of it is that I think really accepting yourself and being self-aware enough to at least learn and figure out what it is that you need and do it for yourself. if you can create that for yourself, you can create it with somebody else. But always looking to somebody else for your happiness to make you feel any certain way is what doesn't work. Because I feel like that's when you have the disappointment and the letdown. But appreciating each other and admiring the differences and the things you admire about each other and letting each other be who they need to be helps. It's just sometimes, and we have our moments too. Remember, we've been together 10 years, but
Yeah.
I've shared this before. We broke up 3 times for very short periods of time. Except the last time.
I never broke up.
Yeah, he says that. He totally, second time was totally him. All him.
But, you know, that's just it too. I mean, this is work in a sense of, you know, nothing comes easy, right? If I don't know, unless you have amazing skilled training from birth, I don't know how this comes off as easy. It comes off. It needs to come off with thought and consideration and a little selfishness now and again.
Yeah, and I think too, as we've been dealing with when Tony was first diagnosed with his cancer and going through the surgery and going through the treatment and then everything afterwards and what is still to come, really makes you realize, like, okay, our time on this earth, you know, there's a clock and it's going to run out whenever that is. Who knows? But do we want to spend that time just like getting all caught up in shit that doesn't matter?
I don't want to look at Natalie the rest of that time and be annoyed with her for something. I'm not going to lock myself in the car and drive around the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You
so
know?
If you are in a relationship, this might be horrible advice, but if you look at it like if that person was gone tomorrow, how would you feel about it? And share that appreciation today. Share those experiences today, because you don't have forever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, what we really learned in this process of going through with the cancer and the cancer treatment, and the fact that, you know, he is in remission now, but it's an aggressive and rare form of cancer that's expected to pop up again.
Yeah.
And they'll do another treatment.
Yeah. But, you know, it takes action.
Yeah.
You know, words are just that. You know, what are you doing? I think Eddie Murphy said, "What have you done for me lately?" You know, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah. And I like this match. My parents had this saying, you got to learn to dance through the storms of life. That's exactly it. Nene, thank you so much for the super sticker.
Nene.
We'll continue to do this. I think the weekends work well with Tony. If you guys have more questions, let us know. We do want to do more videos together on a variety of different subjects. We're open to it. So let us know in the comments what you want to hear about. You can email me at natalie@tonkatalk.com. But we want to continue to do this. It's a lot of fun. And then take the show on the road eventually this summer to go glamping.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yes, I will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. doing a recap. And until then, I guess we will talk to you later. Get out there and have the most amazing cult-free day.